Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. WTF is Trials Fusion. It is part of the Trials series. I know, shocking. It's flooring you right now, isn't it? An uber frustrating motorcycle simulator involving navigating various obstacle-strewn levels. The initial Trials and Trials 2 games were basically little courses inside warehouses, and then along came Trials Evolution, and they added these dynamic backgrounds into the mix, which took you pretty much everywhere. You know, beaches, World War I battlegrounds, wherever the hell you please. And then Trials Fusion comes along, which takes the whole thing into the future, doing the same sort of thing, regardless. You might be wearing a fancy suit, but you are still riding a motorcycle, most of the time. There are a couple of vehicles in the game which are not motorcycles. There is actually a pedal bike as well as a quad bike, but most of the time you're on a motorcycle. Now, this game is already out on console, but it's not coming out on PC until April the 24th. This is going to mean a couple of things that I can't show you. For instance, if I hit the create mode, nothing happens. This is something I assume is going to be fixed. It just hangs. The whole game hangs. So I'm not really sure what's going on with that. And also, I've noticed some issues with the in-game store, which doesn't cost money, by the way. It's in-game credits that you earn in order to customize your rider. Half the time, the models don't render. Again, I assume these are problems that will be ironed out prior to the release of the PC version, but obviously it's still a little bit concerning that they're there. So, let's go and have a look at the options menu, shall we, and see what's going on with that. You got pad controls and keyboard controls. You can't rebind pad. You know, I really hate this, and I hate this for anyone that actually uses a pad, not to mention if you're on a console. The fact that you can't rebind your pad controls, it's so silly. And why would you not be able to? Obviously, I think most people will agree that this is optimal, but unless you have a third-party controller which allows you to force changes, it's a bit annoying that you can't fiddle with that. Keyboard controls, they obviously can be rebound. We'll talk about keyboard versus controller in a game like this in a minute. Now you head to settings, you will see a number of different things, including the subtitles, which will actually turn on for your benefit, of course. Whether or not you want the announcers on, I'd leave them on at least for a while. They're pretty funny. And then if we head to video options, lots of stuff. Lots of stuff. We could turn AO on, I suppose. But might as well crank it up to the absolute maximum, which strangely enough doesn't default to AO being on. But yeah, you can see it on absolute maximum, and we'll see where it goes. We even have a frame rate option right here. You know what, let's put that on, just for the sake of it. We shouldn't really suffer any frame rate drops. I haven't been suffering any. The game seems to be locked to 60, which is a bit unfortunate for... I don't know, actually, maybe it's not. If I turn VSync off, it might... Let's see. Let's see if I can... No. Maybe in-game it does, but we'll find out. Anyway, it does seem to be locked to 60 regardless. I'll crank it all the way up. I'll leave the frame rate on. If you do see any drops, just bear in mind that I do run recording software, which can sometimes have a small impact on the frame rate. But from what I've seen over a few hours of play, the game sticks at rock solid 60 regardless. It runs fine. Alright, so, what to do? Well, it's about riding bikes and such, and of course, customizing your rider. Now, you might notice there's something weird going on in the middle here. This is the online multiplayer. It's not done yet. It's supposed to be released a few months after the actual release of Trials. This is actually a big kick in the teeth, I think, for a lot of people, because the only available multiplayer is local, which on PC is not good at all. And I have a feeling that people might get a little bit bored as a result of not having access to the online multiplayer, at least for several months. I do feel the game may have come out a bit too early. I feel, honestly, any game that comes out and says, oh, we're going to add the multiplayer in later, that has at least a decent budget, it's kind of silly to do that. I don't really see there being too good a reason for that. It just feels like rushing. Why not wait for the damn thing to be feature complete? But I suppose that's just the way that things go these days. For whatever reason, people are willing to release games that aren't finished. Now, under Track Central is where you'll find the user-created tracks. Obviously, we're on PC a week before release. There aren't any. You know, in fact, I don't think there are any at all. It's claiming there's 2, but I'll be damned if I know where they are, because I can't find them in any of these sections at all. Red links? Nope. Newest easy tracks? No, no tracks found. There is an editor, and you can't access that right now either, because again, pre-release, it just doesn't load. As I said, it hangs. So, there will be a huge amount of tracks for this game. There always are for Trials games, so you're not going to be too concerned about that. The in-game system does make the creation of tracks and the browsing of tracks, at least in theory, fairly simple. So, what have we got? Well, we basically have Korea. That's what we have. That's the only thing that's currently available to us to check out. Before we do that, let's have a look at the garage and see if the damn thing actually works this time. Will it load? Because it's on or off, whether it does or not. In this case, it's not going to. So, this is... I don't know why it's doing this. Again, I have to assume it's a pre-release thing, but it takes a long time to load this stuff, assuming that it loads it at all. So you'll notice that there are 6 different vehicles available here. The Roach is the one you get fairly early on. The Baggy, as far as I can tell, there doesn't seem to be too much of a reason to even use this. Once you unlock the Roach, it's got a better engine. And then the Foxbat is a lighter bike. It's much better for tricks. I think it's either Pit Viper or the TKO Panda. I can't remember which is the quad bike. But yeah, you unlock those as you go through the game. Outside of that, there is some rider customization. Again, assuming we can actually get there. If we go to Rider, you'll notice that I've unlocked a bunch of items, which will eventually load. You know, strangely enough, people were complaining that the Xbox One version had some load time issues. I wonder if they were referring to this. The tracks don't take too long to load, as of course you will see, but maybe it's to do with this. It's almost like it's fetching it from the cloud or something, which would be really odd. I'm not sure why you would do that. I don't have too much of an explanation for it. There we go, eventually it does load up. So, you can unlock different outfits and all sorts of things like that. We can wear a squirrel hat, which you can only unlock via Uplay. I tried that earlier, it doesn't work, which is a little annoying. So, you unlock all of that stuff. Some of these items are actually unlocked via playing the iOS game. I think it's the Dashing Hero. You go to step into the light and there's this bit of crossplay going on with it. It's a little... I don't know, I never like that kind of stuff, because honestly, if I'm going to play games on PC, I'm going to play games on PC, right? I'm not going to play them on some other format, even though the iOS version's apparently pretty good. Oh yeah, there's a bit of customization there. Alright, let's play the actual game, show you what's going on with that, because obviously so far I've shown you a bunch of problems that are most likely going to be resolved before release. So let's go into Urban Sprawl, and let's try a few things out. Let's start by showing you the FMX mode. So, FMX is the biggest new addition to the game. You see, even here it has difficulty loading the models. I'm not sure what's up with that. FMX is a trick mode, and you can actually, once you've unlocked it anyway, which involves you going through the FMX training program on stage 3, you can do tricks whenever you want, but there's no benefit to it unless you're on FMX. So, yeah, just, this was intentional, guys. See? You know? I absolutely meant to do that. I'm not too good at trials. Okay, here we go. Now, alright, I keep forgetting, the Foxbat's actually kind of light and will tip over. Alright, so this is the FMX trick mode. So you use the right analog stick in order to pull various tricks, and you can combo different tricks together, and it's actually very free-flowing. It's a physics-based trick mode, so there are technically preset tricks, but you can actually do a lot of your own nonsense. Kinda like that! Ah! You know, it was going so well. And of course, the aim of it is to pull off as many tricks as possible, chain them together, and all sorts of great stuff like that. There we go. That's what I like to see. I'm noticing a bit of tearing, actually, so I'm going to have to turn VSync back on after this. It's one of those few games where I actually get tearing with the VSync off. It's fairly rare on this setup, but it does happen. So my apologies for that. This is the best new addition to the title. And you might be wondering, you know, what's new over Trials Evolution? Not that much. Yeah? If you've played Trials Evolution, you kind of know what to expect from Trials Fusion, outside of the new setting and things like that. But FMX is what diversifies it. It's what really makes it handle differently and what gives you that kind of new dimension there. But I'm going to be entirely honest, it is extremely iterative. There's no doubt about that. It is a Trials game through and through, which I think is what fans of the series are going to be expecting anyway, and they might be disappointed if there was a huge deviation from it. But outside of the FMX trick mode, the additions are very much minor, and it's just a case of more levels, you can create more stuff, and so on and so forth. So let's get that VSync back on to make sure that tearing doesn't happen anymore, and go back to riding. Is that going to be enough for some people? That's always going to be a personal choice, in my honest opinion. Sometimes it will be, sometimes it won't be. Skill game. We can try Blimp My Ride. There we go. And we'll go with the Roach on this one. So this is just a regular run. And as a result, you will be focusing on precision. If you have not played a Trials game before, and maybe you've played something like Joe Danger, let me explain what the difference between the two games is. Trials is a game about balance. Yeah? Trials is a game about balance and precision. The idea is you stay balanced by adjusting the angle of your bike with... no! Come on! No! Just, you know, you can do it. You can do it. You can't do it. You can't. I don't believe it. Speaking of... What if only it was front-wheel drive? Speaking of balancing your bike, let's go off in style. There we go. Yeah, there you go. So, you balance it with... if you're using the keyboard, you'll use the cursor keys to balance. If you're not using the keyboard, you will use the left analog stick to balance forward and backward. This also allows you to pull off tricks, but most of the time, those tricks don't really benefit you unless you just want to post a really impressive replay for somebody. Outside of that, you should just be balancing as much as possible. Now, if you're going up a hill, one of the best ways to balance and make sure you don't tip over backwards is to push forward. And, of course, the other way around. You can do little things like bunny hops, which will allow you to pass small gaps. Outside of that, you want to make sure that your landings are good. Because if they're not, then you are going to be in serious trouble. And that's the game in a nutshell. It's very easy to learn and ridiculously hard to master. Ridiculously so. Some of the tracks get really, really hard, as you're probably aware. And the game is absolutely laden with a certain degree of frustration that comes from trying to nail that gold medal and messing up the last jump and having to restart the entire thing. You can go back to checkpoints, but the chances are if you do that, you are probably not going to get the gold medal. In this case, I was allowed to make one mistake because actually, no, I wasn't allowed to make one mistake. I still got a silver, so... Oh, but I did unlock the quad bike for you guys, so we'll have a look at that. So I got a silver medal, which got me onto the next level because you have to get a certain amount of medals. Each medal is 1 point, so if you get a gold medal, that's 3, and so on and so forth. I could have actually made a mistake there, but I had to beat it in 1 minute in order to get that, as you can see there. Cool, so we can actually try the quad bike out now on the next set, which is going to be the Cactus Challenge. Alright. So yeah, it is a game about being precise, and it's a game about balance. And I'll tell you this... Trials has always been absolutely sublime when it comes to the balancing act that you have to play in order to keep your bike or whatever vehicle where it needs to be. And that's always been the strength of it. The physics engine backing it up is really, really good. Very enjoyable to use. And now with the addition of the trick system, it's even better, because that physics engine and the whole ragdoll effect that your rider takes actually affects your balance and does all sorts of things like that. And it looks great, for one thing. I've got to say. And I found perhaps as many moments of just utter pure horror and frustration so far in Trials as I have moments of glory and enjoyment. There's a lot of satisfaction to be had in absolutely nailing it. And there's a lot of frustration to be had in messing it up. And you will mess it up a lot. No doubt. You will be retrying levels over and over and over again in order to get those perfect scores. And even on, of course, the later levels just to beat it. There are some real nightmares. There's the gold medal. Nailed that one very nicely. On each mission, there's also a bunch of challenges, which I will show you as I go on to the next one. And they're, as far as I'm aware, they seem to be level specific. And they involve some very obscure stuff. Because it might look like the game's very linear, but actually there's a decent amount of hidden stuff that's available. Often by going in reverse or jumping backwards and just finding these little hidden things. So if we pause the game, you will notice here's the challenges. Hold and land a perfect Superman pose over the road jump. Dunk all the penguins underwater. How on earth you manage that, I don't know. Complete the zero-fault run, performing at least 5 flips in under 65 seconds. These are basically achievements. And personally, you know me, I don't even care about achievements. But a lot of people do. And that does give you a reason to replay levels and all sorts of things like that. That said, it is worth noting that the way that they've done the challenges is a bit annoying because you can't have them up on the screen while you're actually racing, which is weird because you've got a ton of screen real estate that you don't actually need. So you have to pause in order to find it. I don't know why the cursor's still on the screen. That's actually kind of annoying. Oh, there we go. What? No, that wasn't a crash. No way. That was absolute BS. Let's try that one again. It said over the ramp. I'm wondering... Oh, over the road jump. Okay, which one is that? It never tells you what it actually is, so... I assume that is... Is that the... I assume that... Oh, yes! I assume that is not the road jump. There you go. Very cool. So, it is very similar to Trials Evolution, with the exception of the FMX system. I think the FMX system is a fantastic addition. It works really, really well. Although, if you are looking for a game that's effectively focused on these kind of tricks, you want to be playing Joe Danger and not Trials. Because Trials, it's almost like this version of the game is kind of loath to use the trick system as much as it wants to. Because there's only certain levels where you'll actually be scored for FMX stuff. Most of the time, you can do it, and sometimes you'll do it for achievements, but outside of that, you're just doing it for your own... You're doing it for your own satisfaction, which is okay too. You know, I'm glad that it lets you do that, and you can pull off some really awesome stuff as a direct result, and it's impressive to watch and really great to show your friends. But, it would be nice if there was more of a focus on that. But I think, you know, Joe Danger and Trials are two very different games. They use a lot of the same mechanics, but Joe Danger was always about do these stunts in this way and make sure that you execute all the moves that are required in order to fulfill your job as a stuntman. And, you know, comboing the stunts together for the entire level was actually a focus in that game. Personally, I like that a lot, and I like it more than I do Trials, but that is an entirely subjective preference. Let me just be entirely frank with you about that, yeah? I prefer it because I like the chaining of tricks together, and I like the fact that the game focuses on that. But other people are going to like Trials because Trials is more focused on precision and balance, and of course it is incredibly punishing. One mistake will absolutely nail you. I love the way that this level decided to go from a different perspective as well. As per Evolution, they have put a lot of effort into the backgrounds, and half of me says it's kind of almost a waste to have done something like that, because the backgrounds don't actually affect anything that goes on in the level. And again, being someone that played Joe Danger, where things that go on in the foreground and background are real obstacles that you actually have to worry about, it's a bit weird to see that. But that does not mean that the backgrounds are pointless, you know? The aesthetic is very important, and the amount of variety and just little pieces of detail that's in Trials Fusion is impressive. There's actually even a nasty dark story going on underneath it. If you listen to all of the voice acting, there is actually a storyline, as strange as it is. Sense of humor's pretty good too. I don't believe that was a crash. I think that was maybe a little bit unfair. But yeah, more of the same, polished with the addition of the new FMX mode, and it runs absolutely fine on PC. You've checked the frame rate counter, it's been rock solid 60 pretty much the entire time. There's always going to be that slight bit of variance thanks to my capture software, but yeah, the game runs absolutely fine. It's a shame it doesn't run at 120. I wonder if they'll unlock that for the release version. It would be nice just to get that extra little bit of smoothness out of the game, but the loading time problems outside of the models not loading don't seem to be present in the PC version. The tracks do not take too long to load at all, which is obviously a problem on the console version, so as usual, the PC version is going to be the best choice for you. The lack of the online multiplayer at launch is definitely something that I think is going to put a lot of people off, and I think that's absolutely justifiable. If you don't want to buy it until they bring the online multiplayer in, I don't think anyone should blame you for that. I think that is a valid point, especially on PC. Local multiplayer is not that useful for those on PC, and the multiplayer is obviously what gives the game a huge amount of longevity as well. There's not a huge amount of tracks on launch, I think you could crack through them in a few hours quite easily, but obviously there's going to be a lot of tracks designed on the editor, so yeah, that's not a huge concern. So yeah, it's a really, really solid, fun, enjoyable, and goddamn frustrating game, as you might expect. I'm actually surprised that I'm doing so well at the moment. It almost feels like maybe they have made at least the first few sets of levels slightly easier. There is a tutorial that is very good at explaining what goes on, as well as the little tricks like the ability to do bunny hops. I mean, I'm not awful at Trials. I'm just not the best in the world at it. I think if you're an absolute Trials god, you're probably going to blow through this stuff pretty easily. Perhaps the challenge system will keep you going, but you might end up waiting for the new tracks developed by Red Links. I should point out there's also a season pass for this game. That is a bit weird, because you're talking about selling DLC for a game where you already put a level editor in it. It's like, really? I mean, what? That was so stupid. What kind of DLC could they actually sell? Are they thinking of selling new environments and parts for the editor? Will it be new bikes? Will they sell new levels? I mean, that seems highly unlikely that they would. The editor kind of destroys their ability to do that. So, I don't know. It might just be a bunch of cosmetic stuff. We'll see. We will certainly... Ah, man, I almost had that. We will certainly find out pretty soon, no doubt. So, yeah. It's really, really good. There's no doubt about that. It's... As I said, I think Joe Danger is a more fun game, at least in my perspective, because I love the way that Joe Danger contextualizes its levels. I love the fact that Joe Danger uses a lot of different vehicles, and that it's very trick-focused, and that you have to actually avoid obstacles in the foreground, which is not something that Trials ever really does. Well, I mean, I guess that's not fair. Everything on the level is an obstacle, but the way that Joe Danger does it is it puts, like, actual physical obstacles, like things you have to duck under, or change lanes to avoid, or even explosives and mines and secret agents on skates and boulders and things like that. Here, the entire level is the obstacle, and you've got to try and nail it as best you can, but... The trick system is super satisfying. Nailing a level is really satisfying. Great feeling of speed. Precise feeling of control. Would you want to play it without a keyboard, without a pad? Probably not. Some people are going to say that they'll be okay with it, and... Oh, that was such a disappointing ending to that. Okay, you know, if you played the previous Trials games with a keyboard and mouse, then fine. You might be okay with it, but bear in mind they've also added this trick system, which makes using the keyboard even more difficult. I don't think you can really get the precision because you have that digital input. And, like, say if I want to go slowly, I can. I can just press down the trigger just a little way. You can't do that in a keyboard. It's a lot of kind of precision tapping one way or the other, Trackmania style. I hate that, personally. But it may be that some people are entirely okay with... entirely okay with doing that. So yes, I would recommend a pad for it, honestly. As I would, honestly, for the other Trials games as well, and even for Joe Danger, but... Some people are going to be able to play it with the keyboard regardless, and good on you if you can do that. I keep messing this up so badly. Yeah, it's kind of great, as you would expect. It's just not a huge addition to the previous titles. It is very... It's very iterative. But... If you wanted more Trials, and you wanted the addition of something cool like a trick system, and, frankly, a nice change of scene with the futuristic aspects, then I think you will enjoy Trials Fusion an awful lot, and you can fight every time! And you can find it on April the 24th, available on PC, or, of course, it's on console right now if you do not want to wait. I believe they've just had a day one patch on Xbox One to try and deal with some of the issues it has, but yeah, the PC, fuck! For the most part, runs pretty damn well. My name has been TotalBiscuit, taking a look at Trials Fusion. Coming out on April the 24th from Red Lynx and Ubisoft. Thank you very much for watching. Bloody hell. I'll see you next time. That's some hideous ground texture. Look at that.